We bring you a message from Boyka.
I'll beat you at your own game. Fists only.
Inside a brutal Russian prison, a dangerous underground fighting ring is run by the corrupt warden, Marov, and a powerful mafia boss named Gaga. The undisputed king of this ring is Yuri Boyka, an undefeated fighter known for his terrifying mix of wild kicks and wrestling skills. Tonight, he easily destroys another opponent, keeping his perfect record. Boyka truly believes he is the most complete fighter in the world, and nobody can tell him otherwise. Meanwhile, George Iceman Chambers, a famous former world heavyweight boxing champion, arrives in Russia. George is past his peak and is visiting the country to film commercials and make public appearances for quick cash with his manager, Phil. After a long day of shooting, a tired George returns to his hotel room. Suddenly, a group of criminals ambushes him and knocks him unconscious. While he is passed out, they plant a large bag of cocaine inside his Bible. The police arrive right away, find the drugs, and arrest him. Despite his global fame, George is given a lightning-fast trial and sent straight to the high-security prison. The moment George steps inside, his celebrity status means nothing. Boyka immediately lets him know he is not welcome. Warden Marov greets George, saying he respects powerful men, but notes the prison already has its own king. George, acting incredibly arrogant, says he doesn't care because his stay will be very short. However, reality hits him fast. When he refuses a freezing cold shower, the guards brutally beat him down. Later, another inmate throws a bucket of urine in his face as a welcome gift from Boyka. George explodes with rage, but the guards restrain him before a riot can start. George shares a cell with Stephen Parker, a British inmate struggling with a severe drug addiction. The next morning, Stephen warns George that this prison has strict, unwritten laws run by dangerous people, and he needs to keep his head down. George completely ignores the advice, fully convinced the American government will rescue him. Later, during lunch, the cafeteria goes dead silent as Boyka walks in. Every prisoner stands up out of fear, except George, who keeps eating. Annoyed by this disrespect, one of Boyka's goons tries to intimidate him. In a split second, George uses his boxing skills to knock the thug out cold. Boyka steps forward furious, and the two stand face to face, ready to fight, but the guards pull them apart.
But in here, I am the champion.
A few days later, Phil visits George with bad news. The American embassy is moving slowly, and it might take a month just to get a hearing. George loses his mind with anger, demanding an expensive lawyer. In reality, a massive conspiracy is happening behind closed doors. Gaga met with the warden and revealed that he planned George's arrest from the beginning. He wanted a world-class professional boxer in the prison just to create the ultimate high-paying fight against Boyka. Back in the prison blocks, Boyka's gang gets revenge by cornering and beating up Stephen. Seeing the unfair attack, George steps in and easily defeats the group using fast boxing combinations. Afterward, a terrified Stephen explains that Gaga's gang controls everything, and anyone who defies them disappears. That night, George George watches Boyka fight in the ring. He is genuinely shocked by what he sees. Boyka is a brutal airborne monster who completely smashes his opponent. After his victory, Boyka points directly at George, loudly challenging him. George stays completely silent. Hoping to speed things up, Warden Marov offers George a deal. If George agrees to fight Boyka, the warden will sign his early release papers immediately. George refuses to be a puppet for their gambling ring. As punishment, Marov sends George to the worst place in the facility, the toxic prison sewers. While George struggles in the dark filth, an old, paralyzed prisoner in a wheelchair named Kraut rolls over and helps him.
I've had time to practice.
Steven later reveals that Kraut used to be an elite commando and a master combat expert. Years ago, during an escape attempt, Kraut killed a guard, earning a life sentence. Eventually, George is dragged out to meet Gaga in person. Gaga drops a massive bombshell. Phil has been working with the mafia the entire time. Phil set George up just to split the millions of dollars made from the betting markets. Heartbroken and betrayed, George realizes he has no other choice. With no one coming to save him, he finally agrees to fight Boyka. Both fighters begin preparing for the historic match. George pushes his body to the limit, focusing on his boxing speed and devastating punches. At the same time, Boyka trains like a demon, perfecting his kicks. However, the corrupt prison staff wants to guarantee a victory to protect their money. Boyka's men corner Steven and threaten to kill him unless he helps them cheat. Terrified, Steven agrees. On the night of the fight, George shocks the crowd in the first round. He utilizes his professional defense, avoiding Boyka's kicks and landing heavy punches that leave Boyka bleeding. George clearly wins the round. However, during the break, a guilty Steven hands George a water bottle laced with a powerful sedative. When the second round begins, the drug kicks in. George's muscles feel like lead. His vision becomes blurry and he can barely stand. Boyka notices the change and launches a brutal one-sided beating, finishing the match with a wild flying kick that knocks George completely unconscious. Boyka is declared the winner. The next morning, Kraut tells George that he was definitely drugged and that Steven was forced to do it. George storms back to his cell in a blind rage, only to find that Steven, overwhelmed by guilt for betraying his friend, has taken his own life, leaving a note begging for forgiveness. Filled with sorrow and anger, George confronts Boyka in the yard, accusing him of cheating. Boyka is genuinely shocked. He lives by a strict martial arts honor code and truly believed he won fairly. When Boyka discovers his own men secretly drugged the water, he is enraged that they ruined his legacy and brutally executes 2 of his top men as punishment. Meanwhile, George beats up the warden in a fit of rage. As punishment, the guards tie him to a pole outside in the freezing snow. At the same time, Phil meets Gaga to collect his cash and asks for George's release. Gaga hands Phil a suitcase of money but has a hitman shoot him dead in the alleyway immediately after. Boyka, wanting to prove he can beat the American champion fairly, demands an official, clean rematch. George is finally untied, but he is weak and broken. Realizing standard boxing will not save him in a no-rules environment, he humbles himself and asks Kraut to train him. Kraut reveals a shocking secret. He was actually the lead instructor who trained a young Boyka, and he knows every single weakness Boyka has. The new training is a living hell. Kraut transforms George into a complete mixed martial artist, teaching him wrestling transitions, low leg kicks, and advanced submission holds. Through this grueling process, George loses his arrogant attitude and becomes a humble warrior, while forming a deep bond with Kraut. Before the big night, Kraut teaches George a highly secret joint lock technique designed to break an opponent's leg, warning him that Boyka will literally die before he ever quits. The night of the ultimate rematch arrives. When the bell rings, George is a completely different man. He smoothly blocks Boyka's flying kicks and uses his new wrestling skills to counter ground moves. The match turns into an absolute bloodbath, with both men trading devastating blows. Boyka shows unbelievable heart, absorbing punches that would knock out normal men, as the exhausting war drags into the final moments. George realizes Boyka is simply too tough to be knocked out. Changing his strategy, George ducks a wild punch, grabs Boyka's leg, and takes him to the canvas. With lightning speed, George locks his arms around Boyka's leg. Boyka screams in intense agony, but true to his character, he refuses to tap out. Realizing this is his only chance, George applies maximum pressure, snapping Boyka's leg with a loud crack. Boyka collapses, unable to stand. George is officially declared the undisputed winner,